Ladies and gentlemen, if there is something that I absolutely love when it comes to Google Ads, it is shopping ads. I mean, shopping ads are extremely easy to set up. It takes less than 2 seconds, but also in my experience for my own e-commerce brand as well as my clients' e-commerce brands, shopping ads have almost always brought in about 90% to 95% of the total sales from Google Ads alone. But here is the big but. Shopping ads really only work if you know how to use the right strategies, if you know some techniques and tips that can really make your shopping ads, your shopping listings stand out compared to your competitors. And in this video, I'm going to go over 13 different tips and tricks, basically some insane strategies which can not only help you explode your own sales with Google shopping ads, but also take your own e-commerce brand to the next level. So we have 13 to cover. Let's get right into it. Optimization tip number 1, start with product testing campaigns and have different phases when it comes to taking your product from testing all the way to scaling. Now, what do I mean by this tip exactly? I've worked with too many e-commerce brands under my Google Ads agency, Your Marketing, which if you're currently doing $30,000 or more per month, you need a little bit of extra help scaling your e-commerce brand to the next level. Go onto my website at yourmarketing.com and book a free call with me to see how we can make that happen together. But I've seen it happen way too many times. An e-commerce store owner just launches a random shopping campaign with a bunch of products in there, hoping that just something works. And that is one of the oldest and the most mummified strategies out there right now when it comes to shopping ads. So specifically when it comes to testing, you need to be using the 2-1 launch strategy and having 2 different product testing campaigns. Here is exactly what I mean. So this is my own e-commerce brand that I always go over. As you can see, I currently have only 3 different campaigns running within this account. And if we look at the last 30 days, but all of these 3 campaigns have done fairly well for the account. We can see the ROAS in the last 30 days is 4.22. Just looking at the last 7 days alone has kind of increased to 4.31. So it has been doing well so far, but the main reason why it's doing well is because I have a phase that I take these products through. So the tip I'm referring to right now has to do more with the product testing side of things, because I like to have one testing campaign. This can be for all products, or this can be for products within a niche, which is basically a standard shopping campaign or a Performance Max campaign. Doesn't really matter. In this case, I'm doing Performance Max because this brand has a lot of data. It has done over $2.5 million in the last 2 years alone. But within this Performance Max campaign, or again, standard shopping campaign, you want to have all of the products on your store that you are testing only. But in the second campaign, which should be a standard shopping campaign, I don't recommend a Performance Max campaign. You should run this campaign with a very, very low bid, but in this campaign have all of the same products. So this is something I like to call as the 2-1 product testing campaign launch, because the first campaign, which is either a standard shopping or Performance Max, tests the product normally with normal bids and with normal target ROAS percentages. Nothing too crazy about that. But the second campaign actually tests those products at a very low bid. And the reason for that is the second campaign is going after the more narrower audience. So surprisingly, a lot of the people that land inside campaign number 1 could also actually land inside campaign number 2 as well. And as you can see, the campaign with the lower bid doesn't really spend a lot, but it does get a decent amount of ROAS. This campaign has been running for over 2 years, has a 5.16x ROAS, and it just spends money whenever it feels like it. It just has a very low bid, so it's not going to spend much. But the 2-1 launch strategy, the 2 product testing campaigns route, is the one I always go through, regardless of if it's a brand new ad account or if it has been running for years and years. But this brings me to tip number 2 and strategy number 2, which is optimize your back end feed with the products. Now, I'm kind of going back a bit here, not really talking about anything with the campaign side of things, because a lot of people don't know that in order to explode sales with Google shopping ads, you need to get your product feed right. And the product feed really starts off with the SimProcess app and what you do within the SimProcess app. And again, you don't need to be using SimProcess. In fact, you don't need to even be on Shopify to optimize your feed. You could do this with WooCommerce, you could do this with Magento, whatever you're using, doesn't matter. Just make sure you optimize your product feed and all of the information which gets submitted to the Google Merchant Center. So as you can see right here, I've provided all of the Google product categories for the products I believe are good winning products. If we go inside ad just a little bit. I've also provided certain things like for certain products, not this one specifically, but I have also provided things under custom attributes. I've provided things under detailed product characteristics. And the key rule of thumb is provide whatever you think is necessary that is going to help your products perform better. So again, having a good optimized feed makes your Google ad account perform 10 times better just because you're providing all of the necessary details Google needs to then go out and show your ad to the right audience member. And because you provided all of these things, you're already 10 steps ahead of your competitors. Google is going to reward you by charging you less per link click. It's going to charge you less for other metrics as well. And you're going to rank more towards the front while getting the same customer on your website for less. So those customers will be much more higher quality, and as a result, you will get much more revenue and sales. So that's something you definitely want to be doing. But in addition, with Product Center feed in the back end with your store, you also want to be optimizing your Google Merchant Center feed. So what I mean by this is going to your product section, looking at diagnostics, fixing all those disapproved items, making sure that there are basically as close to zero as possible. Because again, this makes Google think that you're not following directions. That's why you have a disapproved items to begin with. And as a result, that might impact your performance. So you got to make sure you're optimizing your feed. But this brings me to point number 3, which is including the brand name at the very end of your title. Now, a great example of this is for the keyword, again, 3D printer, because I mean, none of my videos on YouTube get complete without a 3D printer example. Because as you know, if you're an OG follower, I'm basically just obsessed with 3D printers for reasons I don't even personally know. But if we kind of search 3D printer, we can see a lot of these e-commerce stores right here have their brand name at either the beginning or at the very end of their title. Now, I personally recommend having it at the end, but some stores, right, like this one right here, Prusa Research, has the brand name Original Prusa at the very start. And that's something you want to be doing, because one thing that people will start to do as your shopping ads start to get traction, as you start to get more sales, is they will start to search up your brand name. So if your brand name is Prusa Research or Original Prusa, whatever it is, you need to incorporate that brand name into your title, because then Google is going to kind of associate those people searching for your brand name with this keyword as well. And once it makes that connection, it's going to give you more authority. It's going to give your shopping listing much more authority than a random average Joe Schmo just kind of trying to sell his products right here. And as a result, you're just going to get more of these shopping listings compared to, again, some random Joe Schmo who doesn't have that done. So it's really very important for you to do that properly. You want to ideally have it done at the very beginning, or you want to have it done ideally at the very end. And there's one easy way to do this. If you go on over to your Google Merchant Center, you can kind of do this directly within the Google Merchant Center from the feed section. And I have made a video on this you can watch on my YouTube channel. But essentially what you want to be doing is clicking on one of your product feeds, so whatever your main feed is, and within the product feeds, you want to be doing something called going to the feed rules. You want to add a feed rule in here, which basically adds the brand name at the very end automatically per product. So what's going to happen is that the brand name won't appear on your Shopify product page or your WooCommerce product page. It's only going to appear when your shopping listing appears right here when somebody searches for it. So that's really a big advantage if you don't want to make a brand name appear at the very end of every single product page on your store. Then this is a great way to do it. Again, just go to your Merchant Center, go to feed rules, and add that in as a feed rule. It's very beneficial because, again, Google is going to make that connection, and as a result, your shopping listings will get more authority over somebody else. But this kind of brings me to the 4th tip that I have for you when it comes to shopping listings, which is start very broad and then go narrow. No target ROAS versus target ROAS. Now, apply for target ROAS, it can apply for anything else, but what I mean by going broad and then going narrow is, let's say for example, this campaign, which is a Performance Max campaign, I have been running this for a very long time now, for over a month. But if we look at what was going on since the beginning of when I launched it, we can see when I launched it in the beginning, there was not a lot of traction. It was just kind of barely scraping by. But that's because in the beginning, I had set a target ROAS. I had gone into settings right here, and I had set a target ROAS of above 200%. So even though it was a low number, it was a number I had set for this campaign. I had checked this and I had 200 written right there. That was not a good decision from my end, because as you can see, I was giving it too strict rules right from the get-go. And as a result, it was having trouble following those rules. It was having trouble getting those sales. But the moment I went in and the moment I unchecked that, this is what happened to my sales. It kind of went to the next level. If we look at the conversion value over cost, we can see the conversion value over cost basically started to increase during this time period. And it's just through the roof. I mean, it's an 8x and a 10x. But during this time period, when I had set a 200% or a 2x target ROAS, it was not getting me any results. So what I kind of learned from this overall experience, and also a lot of similar experience, not only on this brand, but majority of the other brands I'm handling is if you're starting a standard shopping campaign, go broad. If your bid that you were deciding on the lower end was 30 cents, maybe start 35 cents, maybe start 40 cents. If you were starting a performance max campaign, instead of going with a target ROAS of 200%, 100%, 500%, don't check the target ROAS box initially. Just let it run, let Google do its thing, because I guarantee you Google is smart. It's gonna try to get you as high results as possible. At least that's what it has been doing for me with about 20, 30 different e-commerce brands that I'm working with at any given time. So just let Google do its thing. That is one of the most influential shopping ad tricks that you can do to explode your e-commerce sales and take it to the next level. But let's move on now to the fifth kind of tip and trick I have for you, which is segment based on certain characteristics. Now, so far the account I showed you just had kind of random campaigns within it. It just had one campaign with all of the products within it. But let me now take you inside a campaign where there's a lot of segmentation going on. There's a lot of specific campaigns running based on certain things. So if we go inside campaigns, if we look at last 30 days or this month alone, let's just kind of change it to last 30 days because the month when I'm recording this video just started. So if we look at last 30 days, we can see first of all, there's a bunch of different campaigns running right now. And if we kind of change this to the status and we choose only those that are currently enabled, so make sure it's all enabled. So let's look at actually all the shopping campaigns that are running within this ad account right now and look at all those that have actually spent any kind of money. So in the last 30 days alone. So let's go ahead and choose all of those. So in terms of shopping, these are the only ones that are currently running right now or were running at any given time. But what you will see is that a lot of these are actually based on certain niches. And if we kind of change this even further, look at also the performance max campaigns. There's actually more performance max campaigns running right now. All of these are shopping performance max campaigns, all running based on certain niches or certain criteria. So for example, this campaign right here is the camping niche. This one right here, which is actually not running right now, was actually the winning products collection campaign only. So all of the winning products were within this campaign. This one right here, also a different niche. So what we are doing here is just segmenting these campaigns based on their overall metrics. So it's either or we segment by the product pricing or we segment by the cost of the goods. Whatever it is, there is some sort of similarity between each of these products, and that's where segmentation really comes into effect. And that's one strategy I recommend you try with your shopping or performance max campaign. Just figure out what you want to segment your products by. It could be, again, the niche, it could be by the style, it could be by the cost of the goods, selling price, whatever it is. Just group them together and then run a performance max campaign or any type of standard shopping campaign, whatever it is, for those products, and watch the magic, because I can guarantee you those are going to perform much better than just a random campaign with a random bunch of products. And one really good kind of segmentation I also like to do is winners versus losers, but give it a try. I really recommend that as one of the tips. But this brings me now to the next kind of tip and strategy I have for you, which is something called geography based targeting. So this is more on the scaling side of things. This is what I recommend you do when you want to go out and scale your campaign. So when it comes to scaling your campaigns, there's various different ways you can do it. In fact, I have a bunch of videos on my YouTube channel. I mean, I spent literally hours and hours of my life, over basically 5,000 hours, just scaling different campaigns. That's why I know there's multiple different scaling methods out there. This is not the only good one. But one thing that I really recommend that you try is something called geography scaling, where if you go inside any given campaign, so for example, let's change this to all time. Let's look at the campaign with the most amount of spend, because I recommend you try this only on a campaign which has spent over $10,000. Otherwise, if you try it on something less, don't come crying to me in the comment section saying how I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm the worst e-commerce YouTuber out there, etc., because I told you need to have at least $10,000 worth of ad spend on any given campaign before trying this. But once you do pass that criteria, go on over to your locations and just take a look within the given country by states, which locations are doing the best and which locations are doing the worst. I like to normally rank it by the cost, and then I just see which kind of states got the most sales at a profitable rate. I would add a column in for the ROAS, and also which kind of have the highest cost per conversion. So obviously these states right here, for example, Nebraska might not be my best winning state that I want to advertise within, so I might want to advertise to Nebraska in a different campaign. So that's essentially what you do. Just rank it by the cost, use your top states that got you more than, and it could be any given number. Maybe you want to choose it as 10 conversions or 15 conversions, whatever it is. For example, if it's 10, put all the states out there with more than 10 conversions in one campaign, put all the states with less than 10 conversions inside another campaign, and kind of scale it that way. I've noticed that can work really well, and it's an alternative scaling strategy if you are just kind of tired of using the normal scaling strategies. You're trying to do something different, but give it a go. It has worked really well for me with some of my own ad accounts, and it's worth a try. But this kind of brings me to a very similar, different kind of scaling strategy. Number 7 tip I have for you in terms of scaling is scale by devices. So we covered how to scale by the overall locations, and now we're gonna scale by devices. Same thing as before. Make sure you have 10,000 or more ad spend. Otherwise, don't come cry to me in the comment section. But once you have that data, look at what your winning devices, look at what your losing devices. So for example, mobile phone is my winning device right here. It got me most sales, and cost per conversion is very good. So maybe I want to kind of start a brand new campaign where I'm only advertising to phones, and I have excluded computers, I've excluded tablets. That's all I want to do. And in another campaign, maybe I want to advertise computers and tablets only, and I want to exclude mobile phones. So this kind of lets you become more granular. It lets you kind of try out different things that you normally might not have been able to do if you had been running all of these different types of placements all together. So it's worth a try. I personally have found a lot of success also scaling by devices. But this brings me to the 8th tip that I have for you, and that is just remove control. Now this kind of goes back to the point I mentioned earlier of starting broad and then going narrow, but in this case, just remove control and don't put any control on your shopping campaigns at all. Doesn't matter if it's standard shopping or if it's a performance max. In terms of standard shopping, if it's performing well, there is no reason for you to meddle within the campaign and try to change things, because otherwise what's going to happen is you're going to ruin something, you're going to set the wrong bid, you're going to exclude way too many keywords, and as a result, you're going to end up just destroying that campaign. Ask me how I know. It's because I destroyed many campaigns in the past for the sake of meddling within the campaigns, just changing stuff because I had nothing better to do. And that really is not a good strategy long term. You don't want to be too controlling in life and also with your campaigns in general. So just remove your control with standard shopping. If a 50-cent bid is working, don't try to go in and kind of go more narrow, set it at 45 cents, set it at 40 cents, because it's not going to work. There's a very high chance it's going to ruin your campaign performance. So again, just let it work. If it's working, don't go in and change anything. Same thing with performance max. If no target ROAS is working, don't go in and set a target ROAS. There's no reason for you to do so. So kind of keep things broad, remove control. I know it's hard, but just trust me, remove your control. But this brings me to the next point, which is having cold plus hot traffic audiences. Now, a lot of people know with shopping campaigns that you can advertise your products to cold audiences, but many e-commerce store owners don't know that you can actually kind of sprinkle in some warm and hot traffic targeting. And the best way to do this is right here on my screen. As you can see, if you go inside your standard shopping campaign, go to the audiences section. Within the audiences section, it gives you the ability to either add a new audience for targeting purposes or to add a new audience for observation purposes. If you click on edit audience segments, or if you don't have edit audience segments, just click the plus button that you see right here to add a new audience. But what you should see is something along the lines of the following. So if you go and click campaign, you should see that it shows you observation or targeting. So if you choose targeting, it's going to only target to these audience segments here. But if you choose observation, as you can see, if you hover over it, it tells you that it's going to let you view reports on additional criteria without further narrowing your targeting to only show ads for these criteria. So it's going to show your ads to these people and what you were already showing your ads to, which is cold traffic. So this makes it into a hot and cold traffic audience, really beneficial for standard shopping, especially because it makes your standard shopping perform 10x better, and it kind of uses all the data it's getting from here and divides it into the cold traffic targeting. So very useful. I really recommend you give it a try. But this brings me to the 10th kind of tip that I have for you, and that is to just disable recommendations. Now this is not some wow, it's so amazing strategy. It's a very simple strategy. From your Google Ads dashboard, just go on over to the left side to recommendations. From recommendations, it'll often just kind of hammer you with a bunch of different recommendations like it does right here. But what happens is if you have way too many, this score starts to go down. And don't ask me why. This is something a Google rep told me and it just works. Just kind of excluding these recommendations, getting rid of them does the trick. It improves your campaign performance, because the lower the score, the lower your quality score in general. It's gonna think that there's something wrong with your ad account if you have a low percentage right here. So all you gotta do is go in, just dismiss all, do this once a week, because these things, they will pop up once a week consecutively every single week. It's not something that's just gonna go away forever. So always do this, just dismiss everything, especially those that you don't want to implement. If you want to implement something, implement and then dismiss. That's all you got to do. Very nice, very easy strategy to get this to 100% or close to it as much as possible, because that's gonna do you wonders. But this brings me to the 11th strategy I have for you, which is kind of changing your approach towards the losing products. And I've made a video of this in the past, but take your products, whatever you have, put them inside something called the graveyard campaign. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take you inside one of my e-commerce clients account under my Google Ads agency or marketing, where we just recently started doing this. And I can't tell you how good of a phase this is. So while this is loading up, let me tell you exactly how this works. So you have those product testing campaigns where you test those products, then you take it to the second phase, which is the product profitability, and the product scaling phase, where you have another campaign that is just with winning products only, where you're trying to increase their profitability or you're trying to increase their scalability, either of the two or both together. But you should also have a campaign that's the losers campaign, where all the products from the testing campaign go inside this losing products campaign. And these products are just a bunch of losers, they aren't working. But now with these losing products campaign, you will notice that a lot of these products actually end up not performing even in the losers campaign. So do you really want to just get rid of those 10, 20, 50 products from the losers campaign and just completely have them vanish from your store, which you spent a lot of time, effort, and energy sourcing? For majority of you, the answer will be no, because you did spend a lot of time sourcing it. You probably had suppliers kind of added, give you the best prices. You had your description writers, your product title creators, all sorts of those team members added to your store the right way. So you just don't want to get rid of them. So what you do is you create this campaign right here, which I have on my screen, called the graveyard campaign. And the main purpose of this campaign is to give your products, those that did the worst in the losing products campaign, just one last try. Because after this one last try, if things just don't work, then you say bye to these products forever, and that's when you just forget about them. You just make them vanish. But this is one campaign you just want to kind of try out, run it on as a standard shopping campaign at a very low bid. This one is running at 38 euro, and we just recently started it, hence why it doesn't have too much data. But it can do you wonders, and it can just give you your campaigns one last try. I mean, if you look at the ROAS, it's not a bad ROAS. It's a 2.45x ROAS. We got 1.50 sales. It says 0.50 because we are running this on a linear attribution model. But again, definitely worth the try, and it's gonna do you wonders long term, because it's gonna give a lot of your products that final chance they need to then come in and perform as needed. But let's move on now to our 12th and the second to final strategy when it comes to kind of exploding your sales with shopping ads. That is running your ads on a set schedule. Now, a lot of e-commerce store owners actually don't know about this, but if you go inside any of your shopping ads, and this should be, by the way, a standard shopping campaign, you will be able to see that there's actually an option for you to run the ad on a given schedule. So under ad schedule right here, you can click this pen button to then run the ads on a given schedule. I honestly recommend this for those e-commerce store owners that notice that their ads basically perform during a certain point of the day. So I often get people kind of messaging me saying, hey, why aren't my ads performing from like 11 p.m. at night all the way up to 3 a.m. in the morning? And if your situation is something similar, or if there's other kinds of times that you see your ads just don't perform, you want to go in and set those criteria here. You want to exclude your ads from running during that time, especially if you're spending a lot of money on any given day, because again, that's just going to optimize your ads a bit further for the time periods when people do run, and that will make sure you don't waste money on times when you are just not converting it. And there are, by the way, good times and bad times. There are ways to kind of look into this. If you look at day and hour right here, make sure to change this time period to all time, and it will tell you basically when things perform and when things don't perform, especially like, for example, with this campaign. So again, with this campaign, there's not a lot of data, so I can't really decide for sure that it performs well on a Thursday from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. or if it doesn't. So make sure you have enough data to kind of make this decision. But this brings me to the final kind of tip and strategy I have for you, which is just with your performance max campaigns that are shopping campaigns, run them with one asset group, nothing else. So if we go back right here to all the campaigns, if we go inside to one of the performance max campaigns, and by the way, I made a full video on this on my YouTube channel already with the performance max campaign structure, what the best structure is, etc. You might want to check it out. But within the asset group section, you just want to launch basically one asset group. As you can see, I have only one enabled, even though there's two. This one is disabled. One asset group with no kinds of images, no logos, no descriptions, none of that stuff. Everything is just the default. And the reason for that is I'm forcing this asset group to run as a smart shopping campaign, because that's what happens when there are no asset groups. And 95% of the time, I've seen this perform better. And it makes sense, you know, because with no kinds of different images for Google to test, no different logos, no different descriptions to test, it's kind of pretty straightforward. Either the products work or they don't. So that's what I want to do with with Google. I don't want to have all these different variability options for my Google shopping campaigns to go through. So all performance max campaigns, they have one asset group. That's pretty much it. No logos, no images, descriptions, none of that stuff, because I want to force it to run as a smart shopping. But those are my 13 different Google shopping ad strategies and tips and tricks that can explode your e-commerce brand to the next level. Again, I recommend you try all of it for the best results. But if you would rather get some extra help with your e-commerce brand, have somebody else do all of this for you and more, and you're already doing $30,000 or more per month with Google Ads or just in general, go onto my website at yourmarketing.com, book a free call with me to see how we can possibly work together and scale you to the next level. But if you found any type of value in this video, destroy that like button, destroy that subscribe button, and I will see you in my next video.